All right, I think we are live now. Welcome, everyone. Mativa. If it's morning for you, it is for me. Prenhanda, it's the afternoon for you. And uh, good evening if it's evening for you. So, Slanjava, and Kuchbakofi Akam. Doing high Eved coffee. So, I definitely want to say very thankful for everybody who has been watching and commenting and everything. We've now reached 1,000 subscribers for the channel, which is really, really cool. So, arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you very much. That is so cool. I mean, some of y'all know that I do have another YouTube channel, and that's for screenwriting and stuff like that. But this channel is more for, you know, the shared hobbies, the shared passions of language learning. So the fact that being able to connect with y'all and share the journey of learning the languages of the islands has been so cool. The fact that y'all are along the ride with me is also really cool. So thanks for being here, and thanks for watching this. If you even if you're not on the live stream, if it's not live, if you're watching it afterward, that's still great. Feel free to submit your questions for the live stream. I've got some questions that have already been submitted ahead of time, so I'll be going through those as well. But feel free to submit any questions that you have. It could be about me, it could be about language learning, it could be about, yeah, basically anything if you want. Also, I want to kind of give you a preview of something we're going to do at the end, which is a special care package reveal. So I got a care package from one of my subscribers, and see, it's got a little Scottish flag on there, and it's got a Draigor, the red dragon from Wales. So we're going to do a reveal of what's in here, what this care package is from one of the subscribers after we go through all the questions. So first question is, what are the headphones you're using? That's a cool color. So it's actually kind of funny that you ask, because I do have, if I can find the link for you, I've got, I can give you a link on Amazon to this pair of headphones. I've been using them for about maybe a year or more. I mean, I think they're pretty good. They do have noise canceling. They're, of course, you know, wireless, Bluetooth, that kind of thing, but they're also not super expensive. So I think for the price that they're at, it's actually pretty good. Is this the right link? I'm gonna test it because it's like a shortened link. Yes, so this should be the right link. This will take you to, so I'll put, it's just an Amazon affiliate link that'll take you to, I think I've got the headphones on there. How do I get my hair to look like that? Love the channel. Thank you for liking the channel. I don't know, you mean about looking like this. This is just how the hair is. I don't know. Yeah, eventually, you know, it gets a little bit oily, and then it kind of will stick into place a bit better. But honestly, I guess a boar bristle brush is my go-to. Beard's looking a little crazy though. I need to trim my beard. You can't really tell in this light, but it's actually kind of a like a, I don't want to say ginger, but I guess it is a type of ginger. It's auburn. The beard is actually auburn. So in the right light, it does look red for ginger. But so we've had questions about headphones and about hair, but feel feel free to ask any other questions. Let me see. So a couple of the questions I pulled from that have already been submitted, I pulled from comments on other videos. I pulled from Instagram, uh, and I don't think I got any emails. I don't think I got any emails. And comments on the actual community posts, because on YouTube, do the community post saying, "Hey, I'm going to go live. Do you have any questions?" So Michael says, "I don't have any questions for you to answer. Sorry." I think that's so fun. It's just like, I want to ask you a question, but I don't have anything to ask you. Okay. But hey, that's great. Thanks for saying something, Michael. Hmm. So Tom says, "Tach believe son shin charol," and I will be translating if, in case you're not learning Gaelic, if you're learning Japanese, or if you're learning Welsh, and you don't understand. Tach believe son shin charol. I think he's trying to say, thank you for that, Carl. Beigle Inchinyoch, that was very interesting. Hami Gyonsachug Gaelic Kajoch, Ach Chaniel Mi Finland Hast. I'm learning Gaelic also, but I'm not fluent yet. Cool, thanks. Do you know any resources for learning Scots? I'm interested in learning it as well, but I couldn't find any decent resources. That's actually a really good question. I don't know a lot about how to learn Scots. The only thing that comes to my mind would be honestly just trying to read it and listen to it. Like, it seems to me like because it's so close to English, you could either get a Scots dictionary and or some kind of Middle English dictionary. Like you could kind of learn some Middle English. Um, but especially, I'm sure there's some Scots dictionaries out there. And whenever you don't know a word while you're reading it, just look it up. So, for example, one of the, I think, first books, I can actually reach it. One of the first books that I was introduced to Scots was actually this, which is Kidnapped by Robert Louis Stevenson. Classic book. Robert Louis Stevenson is probably more famous for writing Treasure Island and some other things like that. But this one is my favorite book by him, and it's set in Scotland. And it's actually got a lot of Scots in it. It's kind of a toned down Scots so that it's actually still, readable. But I would say starting with something easy like that, and then just if you don't know what a word is, then just look it up in your um, Scots dictionary. That would be my advice. But yeah, if anybody else knows good resources for learning Scots, I would definitely ask. Or please let us know in the comments to answer Tom's question. Another thing that I would also look into is, and I'm going to drop a link for it once again. I've occasionally talked about, I don't talk about it very often, but one of the resources I would recommend for anybody who learn a language, but specifically you made me think of this for your question about Scots, is go on to italki. That's one of the websites where you could basically pay for interactive language lessons with a tutor. So I just dropped the link there. And I'm pretty sure they've got at least one person who speaks Scots. And so you could go on there onto italki and just for, a couple dollars, book a lesson with a Scots speaker, and they could give you, really good resources on how to learn and then give you lessons if you wanted to keep doing that. So that is my best advice for how to learn Scots, because I don't know a lot about it. So related to that, Sketch TM says, best Scots word in your opinion. Well, see, that's the thing. I don't know a lot of Scots. Best Scots word. Let me see if I can think of one. I guess. Oh, you know what? I do like the word muckle. Muckle. Muckle is a really fun Scots word. I think it's spelled Muckle. Muckle just means very big. So in Gaelic, you say Gleivor. But yeah, Muckle, I would say, is probably one of the best Scots words. That and Drist. Drist. Very rainy and windy. Drist. Um, yeah. So best Scots phrases. Um, that's what I can come up with. I don't really know a lot of Scots. So Primate asks again, thanks for the link to the headphones. It'll be awesome for podcasts. Yes, totally. I'm using these all the time for like if I have to be doing something and I want to be listening while I'm doing something. Um, I wish the range was a little better, but given the price that they're at, it's actually not too bad. Um, as long as I'm in, basically within a room or 2 rooms over, I can still hear. It'll still be connected to my laptop. I use it for work too. I use these all the time. Speaking of which, have you ever found the utility of podcasts in learning languages? Yes and no. So that makes me think of several things, actually. Um, depends kind of how you're defining podcast. I would say that in some ways, the way that I use YouTube is a little bit like a podcast because if it's a YouTube video, but I'm just listening to it, it's essentially a podcast, right? And so in that way, sometimes that can be useful for in a podcast-like way for language learning. Same thing with some of the apps that I use. Like Mango is one of the apps that I use. Um, and oh, one of my friends in Scotland just messaged me and said, "When's your live stream?" uh, and so I'm gonna text him back and say it's happening right now. This guy did submit a question, so I'm gonna tell him I haven't answered your question yet. Anyway, where was I? So podcast for language learning. Mango, which I've talked about in some of my videos. Unfortunately, they don't have Welsh yet. I've even tweeted them, be like, "Do you have Welsh yet?" But they do have Gaelic and they have Japanese. They have a setting where you can, instead of having to click the next button to each lesson, because it's very audio driven. You can still look at the screen, but you can do it with just the audio. You can set it to where it'll just auto play the lesson, almost like a podcast or almost like a Pimsleur kind of, you know, almost like a language tape type thing. So that's similar to a podcast. But I think the same thing with the online courses that I take. Some of those, especially the Gaelic course, which I highly recommend. A lot of that I can kind of listen to the audio sometimes and still learn, but it's better when there's actually, you got to kind of be looking at the screen to see what the teacher Jason is writing on the board. Sorry, I'm getting off all these tangents, but what you mentioned about podcasts made me think of learning languages through audio only. And I would say learning through audio only is more akin to what I do. I don't use podcasts very much. I think podcasts are really better if you already have a little bit of a foundation in the language. So unless you find a podcast for the language you're learning that is very basic, in order for the podcast to be interesting to people, they're probably going to have to use a little bit more advanced language. So you would kind of have to be like an advanced beginner or at least lower intermediate intermediate learner, in order for the podcast to be, for you to be able to listen to it and enjoy it. And I think in that way, that's one of the reasons I probably haven't used podcasts as much. Not only because I have all these other resources, but also I feel like in some ways I'd rather wait until I'm a little bit better to use the podcasts. So podcasts for language learning is something I do want to do in the future, but Based on where I'm at now and the amount of time I have, I just haven't looked into it much yet. And, I haven't needed to yet because I haven't necessarily until recently been kind of even advanced enough to even take advantage of that. I'm at a point now in Gaelic and Japanese where I probably could start to use those resources. I just haven't done that yet. So that's a very long answer to a very short question. Let's go to something else. Um, money, a mickle makes a muckle. That's funny. Okay, hello, I'm Tommy's dad. Cool. Uh, is Misha Nice to meet you. I would just like to say I really appreciate your channel for bringing language back to the fore. Favorite Scots word is gomeril. Gomeril. I don't know what that means. So Andy, if you want to tell us what gomeril means, please drop that into the comments. That would be cool. And also, I hope I'm saying it right. So yeah, thanks for that. Next question. So this is from a comment on a different video. Could you please explain the usage of the diacritical markings in words in Gaelic? I was never taught this. So it's a very good question. And this will also be a little bit relevant to Welsh as well, because there's a different diacritical mark that I've been trying to figure out how to do on my phone in Welsh, because it's not working. So I might, once I figure out how to do it, I might make a video about it, just because it's really annoying to be, type it on Duolingo or in something else and being wanting to put the wanting to put the symbol above the letter and not being able to. But for Gaelic, the type of accent mark that you're talking about is called a grave, or a grave accent. And it points the opposite direction of the grave accent that you typically see in, for example, in Spanish or French or Irish Gaelic. That's one of the ways that you can tell Irish and Gaelic apart, is the direction that the grave accent points. So if it kind of leans one direction, it's one of those other languages, or if it leans the other direction, then it's Gaelic. I'm not going to try to do it this way because everything is mirrored on my screen, so I don't want to do it wrong. But so in Gaelic, that grave accent is called a strach. And basically that is telling you which syllable to emphasize in the word. So if you see the accent mark over that word, then you know to emphasize that syllable. So if you see the grave, you see the strach, then you know to emphasize that part of the word. And I'm pretty sure that's what you need to know for the accent marks. I'm sure there's a lot more detail that somebody who is a native speaker or is a linguistics expert could talk about with the grave. But for a learner, learners like you and me, I'm pretty sure that's all you need to know, Bruce. Okay. So Andy says, Gomeril, a foolish person. Okay, cool. Thanks. Thanks, Andy. A Gomeril is a foolish person in Scots. Okay, Primate asks, how's the reception of Scots and Gaelic in the US? So I'm not sure where you're writing from, but here in the US, I would say a lot of people don't really know the difference. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make a video about Scots, even though I'm not a Scots learner and I'm learning Gaelic. In the US, people just they use the word Gaelic, and even in some of my videos, because so many folks that are watching my channel, all they know is the word Gaelic. So sometimes I'll use that word when really that could refer to Gaeilge, Irish, or Gaelic, Scottish Gaelic. So if I'm going to say it in English, I'll differentiate between Irish Gaelic and Scottish Gaelic, right? Even though Gaeilge and Gaelic. But as far as Scots, I think it's even harder for people to distinguish because it is similar to English, and that's one of the reasons why I did that video. Kind of, is it a language? Is it a dialect? Because a lot of people who don't live in Scotland, if they don't know all about it, would probably say, "Oh, that's just kind of like English with a Scottish accent, right?" It's like, or Scottish slang. Well, no, and that's what that video was kind of about, saying some of this you might be able to get from context clues, but a lot of it, if there's enough Scots words in it, it's going to be basically, something you can't understand. So as far as the perception in the U.S., I think a lot of it is they don't know what Scots is, and if they do know what it is, they just think it's slang or the same thing as a Scottish accent, and then they don't know the difference between the different types of Gaelic. They don't know the difference in the Goidelic languages. Um, and so part of that is, what I try to talk about in the channel, like what's the difference between these? What are these? But once somebody hears about it, they're usually interested in it. I say, "Oh, I'm learning Scottish Gaelic uh, or Scottish Gaelic." It'll be like, "Oh, oh, cool," and then they might ask more. Or the other reaction that I usually get is, "Oh, okay," and then I don't know what to say, and they change the subject. So, kind of, it's usually one of the two. All right. So Tommy asks, which language do you have the most fun learning? Hmm, that's a really hard question to answer. Um, I would say it depends on in what way, right? Because I have these different connections to the languages in different ways. Um, like each language has got its own, you know, own reasons why I love it. So it's hard to say which one is the most fun to learn. Um, maybe the one that's the most fun to pretend to learn is probably Japanese, because my wife and I are usually watching anime every night. So you're like, oh yeah, we're learning Japanese right now. We're just watching anime. So anime o mite kudasai. I mean that is like a kind of um, passive immersion, and it is kind of helping me learn it. But it's still not actively studying. It's not active immersion. But that's pretty fun. But Japanese is also so hard that to actively learn it is not always as fun. It's like real work. So I would say the most fun to learn is probably, um, I guess I'd have to go with Gaelic now, especially because I'm a little bit better in Gaelic than I am in Welsh, and so it's gotten to the point where I can. It's not quite as much of a struggle to look at something or listen to something. Um, I can pick up more of it. Um, but it also means that I'm now challenging myself with harder material, which is then, like I said, more of a challenge. So I don't, that's a real hard question to answer. Like, which one do I enjoy learning the most? It's like, well, I like different aspects of each language. So it's usually like I'm drawn to different aspects, and those aspects are more fun depending on what it is. Um, yeah, I think in some ways Welsh is fun because there's more media for it and more resources because more people speak it. But Gaelic is also, and it's very fun to listen to Welsh. It just sounds beautiful. And in Gaelic, it doesn't always sound as lilting and beautiful, but they're close to my heart. So I don't know. They're all different and they're all fun in different ways. So which language do you have the most fun learning? That's such a hard question. You ask hard questions. Okay. Primate says, have you met pockets of Gaelic community yet, either through travels locally? I'm trying to think what you mean. Have I met pockets of Gaelic community yet, either through travels? Oh, through travels or locally. Okay. Kind of, kind of. And I've even thought about doing a video about this as well, kind of like the chances that I've gotten to use Gaelic a little bit in, talking to people. But it's usually more like I meet someone who's from Scotland and I try to speak to them in Gaelic and see what their reaction is. It's not so much that I actually meet another Gaelic speaker. That's not really happened yet. Except I do have a coworker who plays the bagpipes, and because of that, actually knows a little bit of Gaelic. And will go to. I think he's been several times now. He's been to the Halen, the islands. Uh, participate in some of these learning activities with the Pibrach, the piping society. And so he and I have sat down and talked about Gaelic, but he's very much on the bagpipe side and not very much on the Gaelic side. But he knows a little bit and knows some phrases and stuff. As far as locally, I guess that would kind of count as locally because he's a coworker. Yeah. And then I have met up in person with one of our subscribers who is also a Gaelic learner. And that was really cool to get to meet him and talk about how we're learning Gaelic and how he said, I don't know how you're doing, Welsh at the same time. So if you want to, I've actually I posted a picture of us, during our meeting. You can find that on my Instagram. Instagram. So you can see a picture of us on the Instagram. Let's see. So if I get the final decision on approving a Gaelic dub for one anime, which do I choose? That's tricky. As a matter of fact, there actually is an anime that has been dubbed into Gaelic, and it was picked up by BBC Alpa. And I was considering making a video about it, but the only way you can watch it is if you live in Scotland, or rather live in the UK and have like the TV license. I'm trying to find the language for you. Not the language. I'm trying to find the link for you. Sorry. So you can read about it. Because Tommy wrote about it. Gosh, I really thought I had the link already pulled up. Sorry about that. All right, so yeah, this is the anime is called Ronja, the Robber's Daughter, and so it's kind of a Scandinavian. It's set in like Scandinavia, I think. But BBC Alpa bought the rights to it, and they did dub it into Gaelic. But even if I tried to watch it, and I couldn't watch any of it because even using a VPN to say I'm in the UK, it still wouldn't let me watch it because I don't have a TV license for the UK. So you'd have to get a TV license. And also you'd have to be able to watch it recently after it's aired because they don't have all of the episodes on demand. So if it hasn't aired recently and you try to go watch it online, it'll say this episode's no longer available. So sad, but it's hard to be able to watch that. Just drop the link in there. There you can read all about it. As far as if there was another anime that I could pick to dub into Gaelic. That's a hard one. It would definitely have to be one. Oh, you know what? I just thought of one. I thought of one. Um, what is the name? What is the name? I could see the characters and stuff. I'm gonna ask my wife. Maybe she'll remember the name. Okay, so the ancient Magus's bride. So in Japanese, it's Maho Tsukai no Yome. So this actually is so ancient Magus for the anime. It's set in Britain, and it kind of has it's fantasy and it has to do with magic and things like that. It's really fun. Um, so if I could pick any anime to dub into together, I think that one would be kind of cool because it's set in the UK. That's um, Naruto Uzumaki instead of Uzumaki. Do Uzumaki Gallic style Naruto. That's funny. Okay. When I was 12, 13, I said I to a teacher, yes, and I got the belt. They beat the Scots out of us. The other Scots were Tumshi, stupid, foolish person. Yeah, that's so weird to me. I was watching yesterday. Was it yesterday? Maybe the day before. BBC Alapa, and they were talking about how people would get whipped if they were caught speaking Gaelic in school. This was in the 1800s, but still, it was like you don't speak English. This is a little kid who has just come to school, has never learned before. How can you punish the child not only for speaking their native language, but also why would you punish them for not speaking the language they haven't learned yet? And same thing in Wales, the Welsh not. You know, I don't understand. Don't understand how that was just perpetuated. And yeah, it makes me mad. Same thing with American Indian or how they oppressed states, you know, in the 1800s and 1900s. Don't get it. Okay. More questions. Don't forget, we've got a care package around for that. So Ezekiel asks, how do you surround yourself with an environment conducive to learning languages? I imagine it's hard to learn some of the relative speakers to practice with. First of all, great vocab word there, paucity. Um, but yeah, it's hard to learn given the relative paucity of speakers. That's true, but it's also not as hard as you would think, just because of things like this. Like we have communities online, and there's teachers who can get the online courses that I'm always talking about that I take, and you know, like italki that I have the link for down there. You can tutor. So there's lots of um, there's lots of, you know, even for a minority language like Gaelic or Welsh, like there's a ton of resources. There's books. There's these apps. You've got things like Duolingo, which is the biggest language learning app. It's also got, uh, you know, it's got Klingon and Yiddish. You know, it's got all these, you know, endangered languages on there. So that helps a lot. But as far as surrounding myself with an environment conducive to learning languages, part of that, especially to your point about not having people around you in person interact with, I agree that is still a barrier, even though, you know, given what I already talked about with there being people to practice with online, it's still, you know, one-on-one, face-to-face, really big. It's still really important. I would say the biggest thing for me is mindset. From the mindset, of being a language learner, and part of that is just doing Duolingo every day. Even if you only do Duolingo, that's not going to make you fluent. And if you only do, it may give you a lot of problems. But just keep it in the habit and keeping the of learning every day. That reminds me subconsciously, I am learning these languages. Even if I don't get to work on it very much that particular day, I know, oh, when the weekend gets here, or tomorrow after work, or whatever it is, I get to practice. And having that mindset of being a language learner, to where it's more of a just a chore or a task that I do. No, this is a lifestyle. Producing the language, meaning like speaking it, even if no one is responding to me, is also important. So that's to the cats. That's to the wee bear. Especially in the morning. I'm doing Gaelic with him every morning, where the only thing he hears from me is Gaelic. That helps. Trying to put new words and phrases together, so it makes me learn. Or I'll have to be like, I'm trying something to him, and I'm like, oh, I don't know this word, and then I have to look the word up. I'm doing that probably every day. Like he has this little onesie that has like lions and crocodiles and this star onesie. And I was like, I don't know how to say crocodile in Gaelic. So I have to pull up the dictionary on my phone. Be like, oh, crocodile, crocodile. So even just that type of thing, where I know at a certain time of day, every day, I'm going to be doing this language. It's habitual at that point. So mindset and habit, I think, are really important. Be willing to buy resources. I don't know. I talk about like, oh, you this course, you should get this book. All these things that I'm recommending, or that I've bought, or that I'm using. And people want to do stuff for free, but if it's important to you, you'll pay for it. You'll invest. If it's actually important to you, and that goal is motivating to you, and actually paying for something likely to use the thing that you've paid for. So a lot of people say, oh, why would I buy this course, or why would I buy this Japanese course that I'm recommending Carl? And it's a lot of money. It's like, well, if you pay the money for it, and you're more likely to actually use it, it has that value attached to it. So resources, habit, and mindset. Mindset. Those are how I would answer your question, Ezekiel. Right. Any more questions? Check your audio. Check your audio. Well, I did mute myself momentarily a few minutes. Can you not hear me? Is my headphones still working? I think they're still working. So Primate asks, how do you learn the Japanese scripts? So that's a couple different things. I think, first of all, I'm less interested in being able to write Japanese because there's a flickering sound. Let me turn my headphones off. Maybe